From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Practitioner Brief. James Azar here for your latest on the risk, impact, and mitigation of the latest cybersecurity threats. We are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So good morning to everyone after a very long weekend. I hope you had an awesome 4th of July if you're stateside. For our friends over in Canada, I know last week you had Canada Day right before we went on our long weekend. So I hope you enjoyed that as well. Welcome back. And for a lot of you, you may have not had a weekend at all, thanks to our friends over at REvil Ransomware gang, which we'll talk about here in just a few moments with what is being called the largest, ransomware attack. We'll have a conversation about that. Good morning to Roger, and good morning to our LinkedIn user here as well. For everyone tuning in, good morning. Thank you so much for being with us today. Hope you're getting ready to get back into your routine after this long weekend. So I'd be a fool if I didn't start by thanking our supporters, KnowBe4, Wistic, and Ativo Networks for their support of the show. Go and check them out. You can see more about them in the show notes. You can also see the latest webinar I'm doing with my friends over at Ativo Networks on Active Directory. What happens when Active Directory moves into the cloud? You don't want to miss it. It's going to be one heck of a webinar next Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern. So go and sign up below in order to be able to join us there. And now without further ado, before we get into our story of the day, if you have not subscribed and follow our podcast, please make sure to do so right now. My ceremonial cup of coffee, because without my double espresso, I couldn't bring you this show. It's my fuel. It just is. Cheers. All right, folks, let's get right into what's going on. In case you've been living under a rock over the last few days, James McGuigan says, good morning, all. Anything exciting happened over the weekend? Kaseya, which provides MSPs with an entire suite of services, was hit with a ransomware attack that's affected 1,500 businesses and a request of $70 million in ransom to be paid in order to decrypt all of the victims. We'll start off by saying the following. If you don't know what Kaseya is, so Kaseya is a cloud-based MSP software provider. The company's done fairly well in communications. First of all, start off with that. The company has been active all weekend long, posting IOCs. They've reached out to the community. Their CEO went on camera right away. Got to give him props for that. At least they're not, hiding behind a PR firm or anything like that as well. But let's get into what we know so far. And cheers to Nancy. Thank you for joining us this morning. So let's get into what we know so far. Kaseya says they're working on the restoration process and readying a rollout to fix the exploited 0-day to VSA customers. All on-premise VSA servers should continue to remain offline until further instructions from Kaseya about when it is safe to restore operation. A patch will be required to be installed prior to restoring the VSA, and a set of recommendations on how to increase your security posture, according to Kaseya. To deploy ransomware payloads on the systems of Kaseya customers and their clients, the REvil operators exploited a 0-day vulnerability, which was not yet publicly disclosed, CV 2021-30116, in the Kaseya VSA, an RMM, which stands for Remote Monitoring and Management Software, commonly used by MSPs to manage client networks. Kaseya was in the process of patching the 0-day vulnerability, which was reported privately by researchers, and they were working on checking the patch that they had just finished complying in order to have all their customers patch this specific 0 day. The attackers exploited it to bypass authentication, run arbitrary code, and run arbitrary command execution. What we're seeing here is REvil is now asking for $70 million. They've actually gone down to 50 for a universal decryptor. We'll continue to going that, according to the Hacker News, Kaseya has ruled out a supply chain attack and says VSA 0 day hits its customers directly, meaning this wasn't a SolarWinds-esque type of attack, which is what some of the earlier rumors for Kaseya were yesterday on Clubhouse in the morning on the other side of cyber. That was one of the things we discussed was this similar to SolarWinds? A lot of people tend to always want to compare one thing to the other. And the good and bad news here, folks, is this. This seems to be a 0 day exploit, which is a little bit different from the modus operandi of a SolarWinds type of attack. However, from the information I've been able to obtain with some people I was speaking with yesterday and over the weekend, there are some elements to this that will only be found out later that will help us understand exactly how far and how wide the net was spread in order to get this done. The attackers who exploited the 0 day vulnerabilities in the VSA product to bypass authentication, run arbitrary command execution, allowed the attackers to leverage the standard VCA product functionality to deploy ransomware to the endpoints. There's no evidence that Kaseya's VCA codebase has been maliciously modified. Now, this might be a semantics thing here by Kaseya, meaning they're saying, well, they didn't really do a SolarWinds-esque type of attack on us, but what they did do is they exploited our 0 day, they ran malicious code, which, come on, it's semantics at this point. However, I will support Nancy here in saying that she says good communication is key. I completely agree. Good communication is critical. Absolutely critical in these types of events. Good morning to Igor, who's joining us, and he says, just a minor thing with nearly 1,500 companies were hit by ransomware. The total dollar biggest, the total ransom is the biggest in history thus far. I want to take you guys just a little bit back for everyone watching, okay? Just tiny bit back. Remember CNA Insurance? They got held at ransom. They paid $40 million quietly, kind of like it was their PR, their teams did an unbelievable job of making that $40 million ransom just disappear from the news. This might be a very big ransom, but I don't know that they're going to get $1 out of these guys. You attack a group of people and it's small to mid-sized businesses. You've kind of opened yourself a wormhole that you don't want to go down under, because right now people are standing on their two back feet to recover, and the industry's pretty much come together to fight this back. REvil, which is associated with our friends over in the Soviet Union, the formerly Soviet Union, now Russia, initially demanded 70 million in Bitcoin, and now they're saying they're willing to negotiate in good faith to 50. The script disables the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint Protection feature and uses the certifall.exe utility to code a malicious executable that drops a legitimate Microsoft binary and malicious library, which is the REvil ransomware. The library is then loaded by the legitimate engine and then is utilized by a DLL side loading technique, according to researchers. CISA, FBI, DHS, all on this will await to get a little bit more. But this is significant. Significant because it's targeting an MSPs. And about a year and a half ago, pre-COVID, we saw the amount of MSPs being targeted by cyber criminals continually increase. This is kind of like the Mac Daddy of them all, and we'll see how this pans out. I pray for the folks over at Kaseya that they're able to help patch these systems and recover. And also, It'd be nice if we saw a list of businesses who were impacted by this, especially the small businesses, because we know that 60 to 70% of these businesses are going to go out of business because of this attack. So if they are, just a suggestion, release the small businesses so that we can go and support them during this hard time. We'll buy gift cards. We'll try to support their business as much as humanly possible. As a community, we know how hard it is to do security. But we also know that these small businesses are under-equipped and don't see the threats as we see them because, well, they're just trying to run their small business wherever that may be. And we stand the risk here of having post-COVID probably the largest single business killer take place, which is ransomware. And if they don't recover their data, if they didn't have backups, they might be looking at shutting down their business or costing them hundreds of thousands of dollars to recover. And so with that being said, just a shout out, if the businesses are willing to share their names, we will support you. I promise you that. We'll move to our next two stories here before we end today's show. Microsoft has told Azure users to update the PowerShell if they're using versions 7.0 or 7.1. This is to address a remote code execution vulnerability that was patched earlier this year. The vulnerability tracked a CVE 2021-26701, rated with a high severity, was fixed by Microsoft in the patch Tuesday in February. The issues exist in .NET 5 and .NET Core due to how text encoding is performed. In the advisory, Microsoft says the flaw has been publicly disclosed, but assigned it as an exploitability rating of exploitation less likely, which indicates that while exploit code could be created, an attacker would likely have difficulty creating the code, requiring expertise or sophisticated timing. However, now they're kind of reminding people of that, which means they've seen that something like this has gone on. LinkedIn user says, we know some European companies that announced that were affected. Great. We should create a database to help support those organizations for sure. Our final story of the day is a very interesting one. And for those who don't know, I am a very outspoken advocate for against what the Chinese government is trying to do globally. And so a new law passed is trying to combat China's insider threat. This is a bill that was passed by the Senate, the U.S. Innovation and Competition Act, which was passed in the week ending of June 11th, 2021. It included two cyber-related acts. Both were introduced by Senator Portman, who is the ranking member of the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee and a strong advocate for the cybersecurity community. The Cyber Response and Recovery Act, which is designed to improve the federal response to major cyber attacks, although underfunded only $20 million over 7 years, its purpose is similar to the declared purpose of the EU's Joint Cyber Unit. And the next one, which was passed in the bill, was the Safeguarding American Innovation Act, designed to prevent foreign powers, and especially China, from stealing or unlawfully acquiring U.S. federally funded research. It is the direct result of a major study published in December of 2019 titled Threats to the U.S. Research Enterprise, China's Talent Recruitment Plans. And what this is all about, folks, to kind of give you an idea, is China will target U.S. researchers and lure them in with money and labs and staff. And once these researchers accepted and move to China, then they're asked to hand over all of the U.S. funded research to the Chinese government. And then they are prevented by Chinese law of sharing their research in China with their U.S. counterparts. This goes directly against kind of the nature of research to begin with. And now a bill has been passed to address that. It's a very interesting bill to see what this actually does. I found it to be very interesting. Now, they pin it on China, and John Ford, who's the managing director of Global Government Services and Insider Risk Solutions at Mandia, says we shouldn't pin it all on China. Everybody does this to everybody else. So it's very, very interesting. Nonetheless, this bill is now law, and we'll see what this means over time and if this will reduce it. Espionage is always done across the board, but this is one where we're trying to create some level of laws in order to prosecute the criminals or the people who go against the interest of the United States, especially against its largest adversary, which is China. I saw an article that talks about China to take over Afghanistan as soon as we leave. We've already, I believe, left Afghanistan over the weekend. Bagram Air Force Base was essentially left deserted with no one there. So we'll see about that. Folks, that's it for our practitioner brief today. We'll be back again tomorrow. It's a short week, so we'll be back again tomorrow, 9 a.m. right here with the latest threats, risks, impact, and mitigation of cybersecurity. We'll keep you updated on the Kaseya situation as well and everything else that's going to be taking place. So keep yourself in spot ready. If you've worked over the weekend and you're still working on the Kaseya thing, salute to you. And we stand behind you 150% in support of the work that you're trying to get done. Folks, that's it for us here. We'll be back again tomorrow. Until then, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.